Hey folks, welcome to Doc Talk. Sure glad to join us. I'm excited about the show. Dr. Dale Blasi is going to be with us, and we're going to talk about wheat pasture and cattle production. Thanks for joining us today, and stay tuned after these messages.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress, powered by Kansas farmers.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Hey folks, welcome to Doc Talk, and welcome to the show, Dr. Blasi.
Good to be here, Dr. Thompson.
That's great, folks. This is Dale Blasi. He's a professor and extension beef specialist here at Kansas State University's Department of Animal Science and Industry. And most of you out there who watch the show have either seen Dale at one of the CE offerings or producer meetings that he puts on, or make sure that you come to the Stalker unit here at Kansas State University for Stalker Day every September. Great education and a little bit of fun thrown in.
That's right, Dan. We try our best to allow producers to interact with themselves as well as to hear the talking heads that provide the information.
You bet. And folks, one of the neatest and probably one of the nicest Stalker research facilities in the United States. If you haven't seen it or hadn't been to Stalker Day, you need to, and you need to be there. But what we're going to talk about today is something that, you know, we're coming upon that time of year of turning cattle out on wheat. You have a lot of experience with wheat pasture, rye pasture, and different things. And I thought, you know, let's just talk in general about some of the things that are going on out there and how we handle some of these.
Well, you know, wheat pasture's an amazing forage resource. In certain parts of the country, it affords people post-weaning to allow for some post-weaning growth on their calves prior to the actual marketing of their calves. And for many of our stocker as well as our feed yard operators, it affords them the opportunity to lay in calves at a light weight and develop some stretch on those calves prior to going into the yard, or if they're light enough, actually to fit into the next spring's grazing on our native grasses.
Oh, sure. And so when we're looking at you know, there's obviously different types of systems associated with wheat, but the main one being dry land versus center pivot, right?
That's right. Majority, of course, is dry land, and whether or not the person who owns the operation wants to graze the cattle, and of course that's all complex with wheat prices and prevailing environmental conditions on whether there will be sufficient stand of wheat for somebody to actually take advantage of that growth of wheat.
Yeah, and you're talking about that, you know, the environmental concerns. There's some years we don't get enough rainfall, we don't get enough wheat produced, there's not enough to put cattle out there. Can be somewhat unpredictable.
Absolutely, and you know, in my work prior to moving to Manhattan out of Hutchinson, a sweet spot is down there in that Cherokee, Oklahoma area towards Enid, Oklahoma. There's some really good area there where the soil is somewhat sandy. Temperatures are such that they're able to get wheat up and going, avoiding Hessian fly and many of the mosaic wheat diseases and so forth. It really is a sweet spot for stocker production in that part of the state.
And just, you know, we've got 30 seconds before we head to commercial here, but generally speaking, you know, what is kind of the wheat turnout time period of the year?
Wheat turnout anywhere probably in November would be fair. As you move further south, it's obviously much earlier, but in my work down in the southern tier of counties in Kansas, we were lucky if we were on dry land around the middle of November.
Perfect. Well, let's take a break. Folks, thanks for watching Doc Talk. When we come back, more with Dr. Dale Blasi talking about grazing wheat and producing beef.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamnkansas.com. Doc Talk, brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. We're lucky to be here today and lucky to have as a guest Dr. Dale Blasi. Dr. Blasi is a professor and a state beef extension specialist here at Kansas State University, where he deals with stocker cattle, grazing systems, and really has probably one of the nicest research facilities that I've ever been a part of, right out here at the Stocker Unit in Kansas State University. And we were talking about dry land, and you know, we talked about two different systems, and the other one being that center pivot or irrigated type pastures as well.
Incredible opportunities for producing beef, Dan. Of many of these center pivots are perhaps not sufficient for normal corn production, but fits rather well with the development of forage. And a lot of producers are able to leverage that with the use of rye as opposed to wheat because of the issues of infestation of rye into many of our wheat fields. A lot of our traditional farmers really do not like the idea of having rye anywhere in the vicinity of where they normally produce their wheat. So a lot of folks will look at triticale. Mostly rye is a great opportunity. One huge advantage with respect to center pivots and with rye is that producers are able to plant such that they're able to be out on that forage source by the first part of October. Ooh. So we have great opportunities to grow beef on center pivots, and having that mindset to stock accordingly provides you an opportunity for a uniform watering source, as well as to provide a supplemental feed as needed to stretch out what forage is standing for those cattle to graze.
Well, and as you mentioned earlier in the dryland thing, you know, it's dependent on whether or not we're going to have rain. Remove that variable, we can do a little bit more financial planning to move things forward. And as you mentioned, we can probably get a few more cattle put on that piece.
Absolutely. Much of the work that I've done in central Kansas traditionally or typically would stock upwards of 300 head to one center pivot and set it up in a four-way pie and provide the watering source at the center of the center pivot with the pump there to provide water source and rotate the cattle through accordingly to the growth of the feed, and providing a supplemental silage or be it a grain mix containing some rumensin in there to take the head of steam off of the potential for fermentation and bloat that may ensue. So
you bet.
It's a great opportunity. And another thing important too with respect to the dry land versus anything irrigated is much of the irrigated circles tend to be fenced with hardwire. Much of our dry land wheat resources tend to have a hot wire. And we deal with potential blizzards and stuff. We have tremendous wrecks with cattle being pushed and going 15, 20, 30 miles south, finding their cattle after a heavy snow. So that is one risk with respect to winter grazing and wheat pasture.
Yeah, just setting it up, you know, with the rye, then they're setting it up more with the cattle in mind rather than with the wheat, where
That's right.
we're setting it up with the wheat in mind.
Absolutely. And in many cases, as I indicated in the earlier segment, getting out the middle part of November, in many cases it was Thanksgiving, and with concerns for first joining on our wheat, in many years we're looking at somewhere in the middle part of February. So your period of time to graze can be quite short if you have the eye for having not a significant impact on subsequent grain yield.
Perfect. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Dr. Blasey about some of the problems you can have or some of the challenges you can have when grazing wheat pasture. Thanks for watching Doc Talk. We'll be back after these messages.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Broadband has become as important to us as highways. That is why Doc Talk is teaming up with NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association, and rural broadband companies like Blue Valley Telecommunications in fighting for quality broadband access through the program Smart Rural Communities.
I don't think we have any idea what's coming in the future. I couldn't have imagined 5 years ago what we're doing today. So in 2 years, I would guess there's things we can't imagine that we're going to be doing.
To learn more, visit ntca.org/smart or bluevalley.net.
I'm a patient of Kansas Regenerative Medicine in Manhattan. I had stem cell therapy in my hips and my left knee. My wife and I both are patients. We went down there the same day in November. Since then, my hips are feeling a lot better. I can work now most of the day if I want to. And before, if I worked in the morning, I was done in the afternoon, or if I worked in the afternoon, I was sure enough done for the rest of the day.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Doc Talk, brought to you by
The Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Dale Blasey. Dr. Blasey is a professor and he is the Extension Beef Specialist here at Kansas State University in the Department of Animal Science and Industry over in the College of Agriculture. Someone that Kansas State is very proud to have representing them not only here in research at the Stalker unit, but when he goes out and provides producer education and working on a day-to-day basis. This is one of the guys that actually has his boots on the ground and out in it. And Dale, when we left, we were talking about, we talked a little bit about some of the supplemental feeding, but let's get into some of your ideas on supplemental feeding for wheat pasture, rye pasture cattle, and then that bloat prevention type strategies.
You bet, Dr. Dan. I tell you one thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the lifetime work of Dr. Gerald Horn at Oklahoma State. Yeah. So I think as folks go and dig into the internet and look for information to help provide their information, the work of that gentleman in the whole area of developing supplements, limited amount of supplements with a targeted amount of monensin sodium in the supplement. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that his work is really foundation to everything that we all know about the use of this particular grazing resource.
Yeah, Gerald is a good friend of both of ours and someone that's just done so much great work.
That's right. Well, providing a supplemental feed, there's so many things about it that producers can leverage with it. Management of calves, an opportunity to get really close to observe for any health issues, conditions that may occur, certainly any puffiness with respect to bloat. And as I alluded to earlier, bloat is a potential reality. And I've seen tremendous differences across the road from one pasture to the other in terms of soil type and all the various manifestations that go into whether or not we have a bloat provocative situation. But it's always better to be to anticipate that. A lot of producers will provide a supplemental silage. It really depends on what they have available for feeding. But there's been some work that Gerald and Dr. Terry Mader did years ago looking at the use of supplemental straw to try to reduce the caloric, the potential for gas, provide some more room and scratch, and they didn't see much of a response to that, as my memory recalls. But providing a supplemental energy source in the case of where your wheat stand may not be sufficient is one way to target performance to get to drill in, especially if we're experiencing a really harsh, cool, wet winter. And that's one thing we need to account for is the incredible increase in maintenance requirements that those animals need.
Yeah, it's wintertime, and if you don't have the food on the ground, you're going to have to get something out there to them, and don't wait too long.
That's right. And as I alluded to in one of the earlier segments with respect to dryland wheat, we can have incredible years where gains over an 80-day period, we saw 3 pounds with no shrink applied, but there's been some cases where gains are 1.5 pounds at best. So, you know, if you're targeting a certain level, and with the value of gain today being about $1.10 to $1.15, there's some opportunities there, Dan, to add some weight to those calves at less the cost of the supplement to get as much as you can out of those cattle.
Sure, and still back them up on price so that when you get them out the door, they can do some good.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up with Dr. Blasey and talking about wheat pasture. And what we're going to talk about are some of the expected performances and differences that Dr. Blasey's seen out there. Appreciate you being on the show. Appreciate y'all watching the show. We'll be back after these messages.
The BQA Tip of the Day, sponsored by Beringer Engelheim Vetmedica, Inc.
Hello folks, this is Dr. Nels Lindberg with Animal Medical Center and Production Animal Consultation out of Great Bend, Kansas. Today's BQA Tip of the Day, we're going to visit about branding these cattle. Branding is a common procedure done throughout the United States and the world, but it's very important that we do the best we can to do that brand efficiently and in a timely manner. These cattle here turned out on right. We often brand these sort of cattle when they're turned out of confinement so that if something happens, they get spooked, they get out, we have a means of identification of those animals for that producer. There's many different producers out there. They all have their different brands. But again, the important thing when we are branding these cattle is to have adequate restraint and to be able to do that brand in a timely manner. We want to make sure our brands are functioning properly, whether it's electric or if they're still being fired by propane or wood. We want to make sure that brand is good and hot so that we use the minimum amount of time to brand those animals. Again, adequate restraint and a properly functioning brand are keys to successfully branding cattle in a good and proper manner for that animal. Thank you.
Lecompton. The name was splashed across newspapers throughout America and Europe. It was debated in the halls of Congress. Lecompton interprets its unique territorial history with 2 museums and other sites. Events throughout the year celebrate history and community. Visit the Territorial Capitol Museum, where more than 70 trees are displayed with thousands of antique and vintage ornaments, and be sure to stop in the gift shops in both Lecompton museums. Spend the day in historic Lecompton, shopping, eating, savoring the rich history.
Here's another gardening tip with Annette Jackson from Jackson's Greenhouse.
Fall is a great time to plant perennials, trees, shrubs, and bulbs. Root development occurs with the moist and cool soil conditions, which means better growth next year with less watering and maintenance. The use of mulch on all plantings helps protect from freezing, thawing, and drying out. Let Jackson's help with your next plant.
Jackson's top quality fall bulbs for spring blooming have arrived. Always plant the best bulbs for bigger, better blooms.
Jackson's Greenhouse has what you need today.
Heinen Brothers, a 4th-generation Northeast Kansas farm family, knows how tough farming can be. Farmers helping farmers. Heinen Brothers Ag, selling and servicing crop protection products, fertilizer, anhydrous ammonia, cover crops, quality aerial and ground application. Call today to learn about our extended term financing program. 800-760-4964. HeinenBrothersAg.com.
Healthy cows start with the new Hired Hand automatic livestock sprayer. Rancher invented to provide an efficient alternative to pour-on and injectable parasite management systems. The portable design allows cattle to treat themselves head to hoof. Strategic device placement with pass-through activation technology takes the stress out of parasite treatment for cattle and the rancher. Get the new Hired Hand for yourself or become a distributor. Visit cowsprayer.com. The new Hired Hand makes healthy cows easy.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thompson and Dr. Dale Blasey. We're from Kansas State University, where Dr. Blasey is a professor and an extension beef specialist, focusing on stocker cattle and grazing cattle and basically anything within the beef cattle production area. We're fortunate to have him take time to come over and be on the show. Make sure you go to Stocker Day every September here in Manhattan, Kansas. But Dale, as we left, let's kind of wrap up the show and talk about expected performances and what you see with cattle turned out on wheat and different grazing systems.
A lot of variables impact performance on the outcome of grazing wheat, but the condition of the calves going to grass, what kind of shape they're in relatively, quality of calves, there's a lot of things that impact that. Any degree of sickness, severity of weather can have a tremendous impact on the outside finishing up those calves. And you'll see performance somewhere in the ballpark as low as 1 1/4 pounds if you're stocked too heavy and there's nothing else besides a few blades of wheat and a lot of dirt out there, as opposed to some calves where there's unlimited intake. Conditions are such that they're grazing it at the maturity of that wheat staying fairly immature to where the quality is upwards of 15 to 18% protein, energy approximating 60% or so TDN, maybe even a little higher, but gains could be as high as 3 pounds. Wow. Applying the shrink. I think it's a function of the cattle, the environmental conditions, the conditions used to plant the wheat, planting heavy and thick, and making sure there's adequate fertility as well on that soil. Oh yeah. That'll be the good outcome with respect to grazing in the winter.
Yep, and then if you don't have it, you got to make sure that you get to work with a nutritionist or extension agent, something to figure out what kind of supplements work for the area that you're in.
That's right, and there's a lot of great co-products. So we used a lot of wheat mids out there, a grain mix, and again, Rumensin works very well. I'm a big believer in that ionophore for taking the steam off of the fermentation and going on in that rumen. It helps to minimize the provocative nature of showing up one morning and seeing 3 or 4 dead calves out there around the water tank.
Yeah, and it also will decrease intakes.
That's right.
And curb that intake pattern of those calves, especially when you get that, if you get a big rain or get that lush forage boom, that Rumensin will keep them from busting up on those intakes.
Yes.
Any closing comments or thoughts for folks on turnout this year?
Everything works well when there's adequate moisture and you're not trying to, as dry as it is around the country, you need to be opportunistic with it when it's available. A lot of people chase it and try to plant deep to meet the moisture and fly it in and pray for, we're supposed to get moisture here in the coming week or so. It's a challenge. You just got to be ready to take advantage of it and have another plan if it doesn't come to be.
Well, thanks for all that you do for the state, and thanks for all that you do for the beef industry.
You bet, Dan. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Folks, thanks for watching Doc Talk. Remember, always work with your local veterinarian. If you want to find out what we do here at K-State, you can find us on the web at www.vet.ksu.edu. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. I appreciate you watching Doc Talk today, and I'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamинkansas.com.